Hello everyone, I'm Brian, and today I'm going to be reacting to Reality is Not a Memory, Swami Sarvapriyananda. So reality is not a memory. That is very true. This is something that I learned from watching his videos. However, in the past I would have said that the past was a reality as well. It's not currently happening, but it was reality. It did in fact happen. It's how we got here today. And it's weird to say this, now that I think about it, it's the fact that it says without the past there is no today. I mean, the idea of what the past is, obviously I would think that to be true, that without the past there would be no today. Because if there's no past, then that means the future has ended, or the present has ended as well. Yeah. Anyway, let's go and get started.
How can my mind always be tagged to this pure consciousness in all my work and actions?
I think it's not just Pradeep in India, but a lot of people across the world. When they listen to non-duality first, they begin to understand, and then this question, inevitably it will come up at one point or the other. I see, yes, such a thing is there. It's like a serene, changeless being, consciousness. Very nice. But I don't seem to be somehow in that frame of mind when I'm driving, walking, talking, acting in the world. I'm mixed up. And that background reality is so nice. How can I be there all the time? There's a verse in the Mandukya, the second chapter, a very beautiful verse. The last verse of the second chapter of Mandukya Karika. Tattvam adhyatmikam drishtva, tattvam drishtva tu bahyata, tattvi bhuta stada rama, tattvada pratyuto bhavet. Very beautiful.
Sorry, I couldn't look at that. That was making me dizzy for some odd reason. Whoever's holding that camera needs to steady up a bit.
You know what it says? It's an answer to this question. Seeing that reality, Brahman, within, and seeing that reality outside. You become that reality, you are that reality. And you find bliss and peace and completeness in that reality. And never slip away from that reality. The last quarter. Tattvad apratyuto bhavet. What do you become? You become that which can never slip away from that reality. I have a feeling the questioner would say, yes, that's what I want. Advaita Vedanta says that's what you already have. You've always had it. You suffer under this notion that I have slipped away from it. Even when you think that you have slipped away from it, you have not.
You just don't realize it.
Let's see how I can put it. There are many beautiful ways to put it. First of all, notice this one. I am that reality. It's not that reality, it's not Brahman, it's not Atman. We use all those terms, but those terms can be distancing sometimes. Yes, my Brahman is fine, but I have a problem. Atman is fine, my Atman is fine, like my liver is doing well. But I have a problem. Atman is you. It's literally you, your essence. Yeah, even if I say your essence, you say, yeah, Swami, my essence is fine, but I have a lot of problems in my job, in my family, in the day-to-day world. You are that reality. Let's talk about that openly. Instead of distancing it away as Brahman, Atman, or even the word Tattvam. Tattvam literally means an impersonal truth. So I am that. How can you ever be distanced from yourself? How can you ever slip away from yourself? What you can have, the objection might be, but I feel it. I get disturbed, I get angry, I get unhappy. Yes, that wrong notion can be there. That somehow there was a serenity and I've lost it. It was a serenity in the mind, and the mind has lost that serenity. You are the one which experienced the serene mind. You are the same one which has experienced the disturbing mind, the disturbed mind. The calm, relaxed, spacious, luminous mind and the agitated, turbulent mind, you are the same one.
And man, a turbulent camera too, you know?
Whether it's a waveless, vast expanse or a turbulent ocean with waves and storms, it's the same water, literally the same water without any change at all. Even the ocean example is a little misleading, because you'll say, no, Swami, but something is happening to that water. There's a lot of ups and downs. And yes, but the water nature is unchanged. Water has not become not water when it is in the middle of a storm. In the same way, whether you are in the depths of meditation, absolutely calm, quiet, the world forgotten, still, peaceful, or engaged in frantic action, in a high-pressure job, you are exactly the same unchanging awareness. It may not seem to be that, but you are that. Let me see how I can put it. The space example. So Mandukya uses a space example. Suppose you have different pots. And now the space, which seems vast and unlimited, seems to be cut up into different pots. The space inside the pot, in Sanskrit, Ghatakasha. And the space outside the pot, called Mahakasha. But literally, let me ask you, is the space actually cut off by the pot? The space which was here in Manhattan a few hundred years ago. Now we have so many densely packed buildings. Has the space been cut off? It's amazing. Yeah, it looks like that.
In a sense, yes, but no. The space is still there, just that there's this idea of how Manhattan is split up, or how there's blocks and streets and all that. Those are how we split them up to better understand them, but the space is still really there.
Let me ask you an even simpler question. If you have a glass of water, half full, half empty. There's water and there is
Air.
It's filled with air, but let's forget the air part of it. There's space there, which there's no water in and there's space in where there's water also, but anyway, just empty space. Let's forget the air for the moment. Now when I move the glass from here to there, will the water inside move or not with the glass? All of you don't seem to be sure. This part you should be sure of, because the next part is more confusing.
Well, there's no air, so is there gravity? Is there, friction? Is the glass complete? Just, you said there was no air, so we want to make sure everything else was still there.
Yes, the water does move, otherwise it would make a very wet mess here. If I moved the glass and the water would splash down here. Swami, you forgot to take the water along with the glass. No, that doesn't happen. When you move the glass, the water moves with it. Now let me ask you, does the space move with it?
No.
When the glass is moving like this, the space circumscribed by the glass, that space inside, is it moving along with the glass? Is the space moving along with the glass? No. Tell me, does space move along with the container, the glass, or the glass is moving through space?
Moving through space.
Glass is moving through space. Yeah. When you cut up Manhattan into so many buildings, you have not enclosed space. Space has graciously permitted the buildings to exist within itself. Now, what can happen is, in one pot, there may be smoke and soot. Maybe you lit a fire or something. In one pot, there may be holy Ganga water. In one pot, they may have dirty water. In one pot, there may be milk. Is the space polluted by the smoke in that pot? Is the space purified by the holy water of the Ganga river in that pot? Yeah. No. The pot might be affected. The pot gets affected. But space does not get affected at all. I noticed in India, when a person dies and the body is burnt, The wood is burned to ashes, and the water, there's a lot of water in the body. It vaporizes, and the air around it becomes very hot because the fire is burning. But the space, is it affected right there when the body is burning fiercely? The space is not affected. It's the air which becomes hot. It's the wood which becomes burnt into ashes. It's the water which is vaporized. Look at the 4 elements. They are affected. Earth, fire, water, air. Space, not affected. Similarly, whatever the contents in the mind, whatever the actions of the body, you, the pure consciousness, you are exactly always the same. You have not departed from your real nature as pure consciousness.
You know, this is something that I've come to completely understand, this pure consciousness. And as I watch more and more of these videos, it keeps reinforcing and helps me understand it. And it's just a sure fact that the thing that answers your questions, the I, is just, it is, although I will say I have asked some questions about it, but it is completely unaffected. It will always answer an I. It is unaffected by, in a sense, everything. But what makes it so confusing is the sheer fact that whenever you're left with an option between chocolate and vanilla, I give that an example, it's the fact that this I then has a preference. But it's not because the I has a preference. But I guess someone in the comments says because the I is aware of what this body wants, what is aware of the body, so it knows when the body's in pain. It's aware when you're presented with chocolate or vanilla, whether you want chocolate or vanilla. I get that, and I've understood that. But again, and it used to be, I'd argue, whether Turiya was something that's not attached to the body or in the body. And how do I say this? But as definitions change a little bit, especially with Brahman, it's kind of confused me a little bit in terms of now how I'm supposed to look at this, because at one point it almost seems like, while Brahman is everything, and how it was portrayed in terms of your pure consciousness, to what I understand it now, which is that it's literally everything, and nothing is, well, obviously nothing is separate from Brahman. I get it. Basically everything is Brahman, and, well, there's nothing that's not Brahman. But the consciousness portion, which is a very interesting argument that I can't remember which video it was, of how this material, the argument now is, how is this material world producing consciousness? And I think that's where the interesting argument is at. While I think my personal opinion is this consciousness, which is the I, is maybe was in fact manifested by the material world. While I do believe the Turiya or consciousness, while I do believe he says this Turiya is something separate from the body, that the body's always changing, but this I that always answers is unaffected. I get that. And even with the way how I choose to believe the Turiya being inside the brain, it's not something separate from you, but it's part of your brain. It's just this part of the brain that will always answer I, but you can never, how do I say, experience it, because it is the one that experiences things. Basically everything's the same about how he explains Turiya. The only difference between what he says and what I believe is where the I is, or the Turiya is. Where the Turiya is this Turiya Brahman, is this pure consciousness that illuminates everyone, where I choose to believe, so far, again, I have no way of proving this, nor do I have a way of proving what he's saying, although I can, again, outside of where the location is, this is the only difference. And the fact that the way we all can experience Turiya is by this blankness, because when you have no thoughts, there's nothing being passed through there, so there's just this blankness, darkness. So that's the only difference. Now, where was I getting with that? But yes, the Turiya is the thing that or the consciousness Turiya. I do believe those are roughly the same. Is where the only differences that I have so far from this explanation.
How can I remain connected with that? What he is asking, I know, because it's something that we also ask. I remember, I told you earlier, once I was sitting with a monk in Haridwar, and one young monk was discussing non-dualism very earnestly with the teacher, with the Swami, old Swami. And finally he said excitedly exactly this question, but Swami, we must at least hold on to that idea that I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi, yeh chinta to karni chahiye. This much I must hold on to. And the Swami said, this is exactly what you must not hold on to. Because somehow I think I am Sarva Priyananda. It's like saying I must hold on to it. I must keep saying in the background, I am Sarva Priyananda, I am Sarva Priyananda. Otherwise I might forget. Who am I? Swami, you always ask, who am I? No, I never forget that. The difference between an actor who is acting as Hamlet or somebody in the open air Shakespeare there in Central Park in summer, that actor must always remember that I am Hamlet. Must keep in mind consciously. But suppose the actor's name is Mr. Scott. Does he have to keep remembering, I'm Scott, I'm Scott, I'm Scott? I must keep it in mind, otherwise I'll become Hamlet. No. Doesn't have to remember. In fact, to be a good actor, must not even think about it. Must try to be Hamlet with all intensity. Similarly, the reality which we are, you don't have to keep thinking about it, otherwise I might forget. That happens at the beginning. Because once we get an intuition of what is possible, what we really are, we want to be centered in that. And that's why this question comes, give me some technique so that I noticed what you're talking about. It's remarkable. And let me always remain like that. What Advaita says is, you always are like that. All right, one more point and then we'll go on. Very important here. It is what actually a non-dualist teacher would say to this question. The difference between memory and experience. In Sanskrit, smriti and anubhava. The two are not the same, they do not go together. When you remember something, you are not experiencing it. When you are experiencing something, you are not remembering it, or you need not remember it. All right? Now I'm showing you a clock.
Real quick, would this be fair to say that you must first experience something in order to remember it, though?
Look at the clock. Will you say I'm seeing a clock or I'm remembering a clock? All right.
Both.
Now close your eyes and visualize the clock. Will you say I'm seeing the clock or I'm remembering the clock? Remembering. Okay, you can open your eyes. This is the difference between anubhava, experience, and smriti. Advaita is experience. It's not a memory. It's not something I experienced earlier and then I'm trying to remember it now. The question is, how can I always remember I'm Brahman? No, don't remember you're Brahman, because you're always Brahman.
For some odd reason, I just had a really weird thought there. I will explain it after this, because it's probably long-winded.
It's always shining forth. It's just somehow we think it's not present to us. We think it seems to be hidden. That's why we think that we have to remember it all the time. If you are looking at me, you say, Swami, I'm seeing you. Yes, you're seeing me, but are you remembering me? Swami, I'm seeing you. Why do I have to remember you? When I don't see you, I might remember you. This is the difference between memory and experience. Non-dualism is based on an ever-present experience. It's blazing forth all the time. In fact, it's the only thing that's blazing forth all the time. And we have to recognize it. We don't recognize it. You might ask, all right, so how do I recognize it all the time? You don't have to recognize it all the time also. Once you recognize it, it's done. Only thing is, you are right. there might be a period in our spiritual practice when you need to dwell on it intensively for some period of time. But remember, that's also practice. That's not enlightenment. It's remembering an ever-present object. If you're trying to remember the clock when I'm showing it to you, you're doing something odd indeed.
Okay, so the thought that I had, it's something, it goes actually to what Sadhguru said, at least at one point. So let's go ahead and grab the pen, for example. Am I holding this pen? By the way, this is the discussion, so if you want to end here, I'll see you in the next vid. But am I holding this pen? No, I am not holding this pen, right? But I am experiencing the pen. My fingers are touching the pen and the fingers are sending signals to my brain that I am holding the pen. I'm feeling how it feels in my hand, how I'm wiggling it. But I'm not literally experiencing it, correct? Because my hand is the one that's literally touching the pen, but I am not. So by the time that signal gets to my brain for me to know that I'm holding or touching the pen, it's already in the past, therefore already memory, right? And plus, I is not experiencing this pen. Also, what he was talking about is basically, again, memory, which is not the I portion of the discussion. It's more of the Maya, I guess you could say. Considering that, how do I describe that? Can't quite describe that. I can't think of it right now. I'm thinking too many things. So basically, am I actually experiencing the pen, or is this memory? Because again, for me, whenever I am not touching the pen. My fingers are touching the pen. My fingers is not I. And then when I touch the pen, because we work in like a electrical way, that the signal is being sent from my fingers down to my arm up to my brain. So therefore, when I touch this, the signal is sent. Therefore, it's ready to pass. So am I doing it based on memory or experiencing? It's kind of a question there. For some reason I thought that, because again, what Sadhguru says is that the fact that, you know, I am not actually holding the pen according to non-duality. Now if I put it down and I think about that, I think about holding the pen, is it the same? Because when I think about it and I hold the pen, I'm not getting that electrical signal anymore, but I can experience it in a sense in my mind. Even though it's the past, I can remember it. I can remember how it feels when I twist and turn it. And I'm wondering if that's the same chemical reactions going on in my head when I was touching it versus when I'm remembering it. I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. I'd definitely like to ask, because again, your hands is not you, right? According to non-duality, your hands, your brain, your body, your emotions, it's not you. Even though it is. It's Brahman. Everything's Brahman. So therefore it has, and if you're Brahman, therefore this hand is you, in fact. That's the confusing thing. I hate bringing that up because it confuses me, because it makes a duality but non-duality as well. But anyways, me grabbing this thing, it's already in the past, because for me to realize that I'm holding it, I would have to get signals from my hand to my brain, and whenever that signal is being sent, it's not instantaneous. It takes some time to travel. Kind of like when you touch something hot, you're getting signals that it's hot, but it's not immediate. It's not like the second you touch it, like your brain knows it's hot. No, there is still a delay between you realizing something and for your brain to react. Reaction time, basically. So therefore, technically the past, right? Therefore, memory, maybe? That's the question. Curious. I wonder what he would say about that. And what would you all say about that? Is me touching this right now memory? Unless I'm being way too technical and to experience it, basically experiencing is now supposedly. But If it's in the past, is there a time limit on how you say, like within a second, then you're experiencing, but after a second, it's the past? I'm sure that's not the case. I know what he's talking about, but me holding this is me experiencing it because it's happening right now and now and now. But at the same time, it is the past because it takes time for the information from my hands to go to my brain, knowing that I'm doing this to the pen. Okay. Alright, questions down below if you want to answer that, because I'm curious. I am very much curious about that. So anyways, that's my reaction to reality is not a memory. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.